So here we have the Hisense H9G. Now, Hisense is known for their relatively cheap TVs with impressive specs. The H9G is no exception. While it competes against mid-range TVs from Samsung, Sony, or LG on price, it advertises impressive features. Hi, I'm Daniel from Ratings.com, where we help people find the best products for their needs. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for the latest videos, or check out our website for the full review. First, we'll look at the design of this TV and then move on to the picture quality. We'll look at the motion handling, input lag, and sound, and then compare to other competing models which are currently available. If you'd like to skip straight to our test results, then check out the YouTube chapters. We'll be often comparing this TV to its predecessor from last year, the H9F. Unfortunately, the competing 2020 models of the TCL 6 series and the Vizio M series have just been released, so we haven't tested them at the time of this video. If you want to see a future video comparing these models more closely, then let us know in the description below. We bought the 65-inch H9G to test, but it's also available in a 55-inch size. We expect this smaller size to have very similar picture quality. This is the US model, and we expect our results to be valid for other H9Gs, for example in Canada, where it's called the Q9G. For other Hisense TVs in other regions, we don't expect them to perform the same though. Alright, let's get started with the design. Overall, it's very similar to the H9F from last year. It has a very similarly designed metal stand, which looks good and prevents the TV from wobbling much. There's a power button under the front of the TV, and interestingly enough, in the same area there's also a switch to enable or disable the microphone. For those who are privacy conscious, this could be an interesting option, and it's the first time we've seen it on a TV. A quick note though, we don't know if this is actually a hardware switch to disconnect the microphone, or if it just causes some type of software mute function. Now, looking at the side, it has a pretty typical thickness of a new LCD display. Many of the inputs are located on the right-hand side, so are fairly easy to access even if the TV is placed close to a wall or mounted on the VISA 400 by 400 mount. Now, there's the usual range of connections to this TV. There are 3 HDMI ports directed out the side and 1 out the back. There's also a tuner and 2 USB ports out the side, and an optical output and composite input on the back. This last one can be good for those with older devices and is becoming increasingly uncommon on new TVs. A quick note on the HDMI ports. These are HDMI 2.0 ports. This isn't surprising as HDMI 2.1 is still very new and just starting to become available on a few TVs. If you care about future-proofing with the new console, then this may be something to consider though. You'll also see that there's a long track on the back. This provides a pathway for cable management. It's a simple design that works well and helps to keep things tidy. Now we'll move on to the picture quality. We'll be comparing to currently available TVs, but competing models may change as new TVs are released throughout the year. For an updated comparison with new models as we buy and test them, see the review page on our website, which is linked down below. One of the most fundamental aspects of picture quality is the contrast ratio. It's the ratio between the brightest whites in the scene and the deepest blacks, and a high contrast helps to produce more deep and detailed dark scenes, especially when you're viewing the TV in a dark room. The Hisense H9G has an outstanding contrast ratio, which is in the expected range of a VA panel, but definitely towards the high side. This is excellent for those who plan to watch in the dark. Now, there's also a feature called local dimming to improve the perceived contrast. Basically, this is where different areas or zones of the backlight can be controlled independently to further deepen dark areas of scenes or boost brighter areas. We found that this feature has great performance on the H9G and is definitely improved over last year's H9F. It handles zone transitions well, and even though the zone transitions are noticeable with our test pattern, they aren't visible in real content. There's no black crush and small details pop the way that they should, and even though there's some minor blooming around bright objects, it's not very distracting. Subtitles get bright, but there isn't any blooming around them. Onto the viewing angles. Wide viewing angles are important if you have wide seating, so might regularly watch at an angle. A TV with good viewing angles has a more accurate image when viewed off-axis. When moving off-axis with this TV, the brightness drops and the colors shift. Those who care about viewing angles will find it bad, but we also do get a lot of feedback from people who don't mind the viewing angles of VA panels. As a result, you should check out the video here to see how you find it. Moving on to the reflection handling. Good reflection handling is important for bright rooms that have a lot of sunlight or interior lighting, as ambient light can wash out the picture or make it hard to see what's happening on the screen altogether. The H9G is more glossy than most screens, which may sound like a bad thing, but remember, the glossiness is independent of the total reflectivity. That is, you can have a glossy screen that reflects a lot or a little, and the same applies for screens with hazier coatings. The result on the H9G is actually excellent. While reflections remain defined, they are reduced in intensity significantly, and the result should be fine even for a very bright room. If you do have some lights in your room, then high SDR peak brightness is also important to overcome glare with brighter content. First thing to note, this is a very bright TV. In SDR, the whole screen can get to about 600 nits, which is great for overcoming glare. Smaller windows can be boosted even more, so brightness definitely shouldn't be a problem. The Hisense H9G also supports Dolby Vision, HLG, and HDR10 HDR formats. It's also advertised to support HDR10+. In HDR content, brightness is important for different reasons than SDR content. The high dynamic range allows for more detail in the bright and dark areas of the screen, and high HDR brightness is important for delivering impactful and detailed bright highlights. The H9G can achieve a maximum HDR brightness of over 1700 nits in test patterns, which is great. In our real scene test pattern, it's lower about 730 nits, but this is still impressive and plenty of brightness to produce impactful highlights. Also important in HDR content is the ability to display wider color spaces to produce more vivid details when the director intends for it. The H9G can display a wide color gamut with coverage over most of the DCI-P3 color space. This is good for those who plan to use the TV to watch HDR movies or play HDR games. It isn't as wide as some other TVs like the Samsung or Vizio QLEDs that we've tested in the past, but it's still a very good result. Now, before going on to our results for our motion tests, we're going to take a look at the gray uniformity. We test the gray uniformity of each TV by taking two photos, one of a 50% gray slide and another of a darker 5% gray slide. This shows us if a display can produce the exact same color across the entire screen. Darker areas or blotches are known as the dirty screen effect and can be distracting when watching content with uniform colors, such as sports or when playing video games. Gray uniformity on this TV is actually very good, with only very minor darkening of the edges and very little dirty screen effect visible. This is a bit surprising because the H9F we bought last year had obvious vignetting around the edges. This does vary between units due to tolerances in the manufacturing process, so we really don't know if we just got lucky with the model we bought or if this has really improved significantly over last year. If you buy this TV, then let us know in the comments below how your unit compares. So now onto the motion handling, and we'll start with the response time. To learn more about motion on TVs, check out our video series, which should be linked up here. The response time is an average of the time it takes for a display to transition from one frame to the next. A high response time results in blurry images when watching sports or playing video games. The H9G performs well and is about typical of most newer LCD TVs. You can see in our moving logo photo that there is still a blur trail to the left of the logo, but it isn't that noticeable. There is significant overshoot in some transitions though, which may be especially noticeable in really dark scenes. Overall, it's a definite improvement over the H9F and should be good for most people. Now, the TV does flicker, but it isn't really visible in the moving logo photo due to the high frequency at 960 Hz. While this TV isn't flicker-free, at such a high frequency, very few people are likely to notice it. Now, if you really care about the clearest image, then black frame insertion is a useful feature as it introduces more visible flicker to the backlight, but as a result, it reduces the amount of persistence blur. On this TV, it's available in the advanced settings menu under motion clearness. This can reduce the flicker frequency down to 60 Hz, which does result in more defined motion, as you can see in our moving logo photo. Something else to note is that this moving logo photo is overexposed. This is because we set the brightness of the photo with black frame insertion disabled. Usually the increased flicker of black frame insertion results in a dimmer image. You can see in this case that the H9G applies a compensation to the brightness to make up for this drop. Now, if you're a gamer, then low input lag is very important to reduce the delay between an action in-game and when you see it on the screen. At about 15 milliseconds for 60 Hz signals, it is excellent and feels very responsive. Use game mode for the lowest input lag. Note that you don't see any input lag measurements in this table for 120 Hz signals. This is because we couldn't actually get the TV to display 120 Hz correctly. It will accept a 1080p at 120 Hz signal, but we found that it skips every second frame. despite having a 120Hz panel. It also doesn't accept a 1440p at 120Hz signal at all. This is the same as the H9F, so it isn't too surprising, and Hisense has confirmed that this is expected. We've heard comments from some people that are able to get 1440p to work, but so far it hasn't worked for us, so you might also be out of luck. If you're able to send a 1440p signal to your TV, let us know down below. Time to go over the smart features. The Hisense H9G has great smart features thanks to Android TV 9.0. It's well organized and easy to use. It's also one of the most open systems with loads of apps to choose from. At the time of the review, the Hisense H9G, like the H9F, is ad-free. This is great to see. Most other manufacturers are pushing more and more ads in their home screens, including Sony TVs, which use a very similar Android platform. And lastly, for the sound. It's still decent and about typical of most TVs. The frequency response is well balanced and dialogue sounds clear, but as always, for better sound and more thump or rumble in the bass, you should look into an external sound system or soundbar. So overall, the Hisense H9G is a well-rounded TV with impressive overall performance. It's a pleasant upgrade over its predecessor, the Hisense H9F. Now, there are also some unknowns. We don't have any way to gauge the reliability of TVs, as we only purchase a single unit of each model. Some people are definitely concerned about going with a relatively unknown TV brand. If this bothers you, an extended warranty may be the way to go. We also haven't yet reviewed the closest competition to the H9G in the form of the 2020 models of the TCL 6 series and Vizio M series. Rest assured, a review is on the way, but as these were only released very recently, we've put in our purchase but haven't actually received them yet. So that's it. What do you think of the H9G? Are you waiting to see a comparison to the TCL or Vizio? Let us know down below. You can check out all of the measurements on our website. And if you like this video, subscribe to our channel or become an insider on our website for access to the latest test results first. Also, we're currently hiring in our offices in Montreal for various positions, so if you want to help people find the best product for their needs, have a look at the careers page on our website. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.